Hey, legal besties, and welcome to Ladies in Law. Today we have an incredible guest. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
I'm Jennifer Gardner.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you on this podcast. I already have felt like I've just gotten a lot of information from you, just meeting you in terms of just how you show up and present yourself to the world. So I'm excited for everyone to kind of just get to know you a little bit more and also be better for hearing the things you have to say.
Fantastic. Let's dive in. Let's go. Let's roll.
Awesome.
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it. Okay, so would you mind kind of giving us just a little bit of your background and how you got to where you are today?
Oh my goodness. Well, let me give you the Reader's Digest version if you remember even what a
Perfect.
Reader's Digest is. You may be too young to know what that is, but my grandmother was really into Reader's Digest. Born in San Francisco, raised in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. Um, Wanted to be a journalist, had a family tragedy, couldn't go to journalism school in Boston, so I ended up going to law school and staying close to home. Got into law school, found this competitive streak that lived inside me that I had no idea existed, no idea existed, seriously. And then the rest is history. Graduated, passed the bar, worked for this law firm that I had clerked for during school, and had a horrific experience. A horrific experience. I was the only female associate. And let's just say that the senior partner there did not want me there. He did not want me there. He was sort of an older, gruff, misogynist person. He basically told me, all female lawyers are crazy, therefore you are crazy. You are not a legal genius. You will never work hard enough for enough hours to be a success. Basically, he just made it clear that he just was uncomfortable and that he wanted me out. And when he wasn't saying things like that to me, he was harassing me in all the ways. Okay,
I'm
so
so
that
sorry.
was the beginning. That was the beginning. And then I went to another firm where I had a great experience, fantastic experience. I really felt like I was getting a little bit of training. I was getting some nurturing, and then the firm imploded. It's a long story. One of the partners was waiting for an appointment to the bench. He was going to the bench and he was just waiting for it to exactly happen. Another one was waiting for bypass surgery in his bed at Cedars-Sinai and had a massive heart attack while waiting for surgery, passed
Oh my
away. And the
goodness.
third one basically threw up his hands and said, I just want to manage real estate. I don't want to be practicing law anymore. So the firm imploded. And then I got an offer from a lawyer that I was opposing, who I had developed a really nice rapport with, to interview at this premier entertainment litigation boutique in Century City that was like a plum job. So I did. Based on his recommendation, I got the job. I stayed there for a year, loved it, but was working super, super hard. And it was a really difficult experience for me because my father was dying of cancer. And he passed away when I'd been there about a year. And I just said, you know what? This has all been so incredibly stressful. I need a break. I need a break. I just couldn't do it anymore. It'd been
Mhm.
just 5 years of nonstop intensity and tragedy. And I just decided I'm going to start my own firm. I had no savings. I had a ton of bills. I never tried a case before, had barely been in a courtroom, And so I just said, you know what? It's swim or die. And if I don't make it, I'll figure it out, right? It just won't be
Mhm.
worth it for me, but I cannot navigate this law firm environment and the demands right now at this time. So this is what I'm going to do. So that's what I did. I started my own firm and I didn't have a single client. The lawyers that I've been working for got me started. They sent me a bunch of business. They were very supportive, very sweet, very kind. Yeah, it wasn't work they wanted to do, which was fine. But I got these cases and my clients all wanted trials. And I was marketing myself as a trial lawyer because that was my idea of what a real lawyer does, right? They go to trial. But so I got these cases that were cases where the clients wanted their day in court. They were insisting on their day in court, even though they had these really questionable cases. Like crazy facts,
Been there.
not a
Yep.
lot of law, The kind of thing you give to the young lawyers to cut their teeth. And I was doing it like in real time in my own
Mm.
practice. And I ended up winning my cases, like case after case after case. I was winning. And then that just emboldened me, and things grew. And now we're 30 years later, and I'm still doing pretty much the same thing, only I get much better cases now.
Woo!
Yeah, right. So that's basically my story, and in the process of trying these cases, I became very curious about why I was winning, because I didn't want to wing it, I wanted to nail it. And so I
Mm.
went really, really deep into understanding influence and persuasion and presentations and storytelling. And I mean, I went really, really, really deep. And that's what led me to where I'm at today.
Oh my gosh, what a journey of resilience. Truly. I mean, I think there are so many things that you experienced that would have made a lot of sense to maybe pivot and it would have been okay, but you didn't. You persevered, and I think that there's so much strength in that. And I really appreciate you telling us your journey, because I think that through that kind of visibility, it helps at least one person not feel alone. It helps one person feel seen. It helps at least one person know that there is another end um, to to it if they're actively in what you experienced in your first firm. And I am sorry that you experienced that, and you deserved better. And I am also proud of just the journey that you took, and the way that you were kind of like, you don't get to define me, I define me. And look at where you are today. Like that's an incredible journey, and it's a hard one.
It was not an easy path. One of the things that made it easy was that I was working for myself. And so I was able to expand and contract, which I still do. There will be times when my nervous system gets like completely blown out, which I'm sure it will be in my practice right now in another few more months, because I have like 5 cases I'm preparing for trial within the next 6 months.
Wild.
It's a lot of work.
So
Even
fun.
with a big team, it's a lot of work, right?
Mhm.
Because the cases are complex, and there's like thousands of pages of documents, and we're leveraging AI, and we're trying to make the most of the technology to do a really good
Mhm.
job for the clients. But it's there have been times where I've had to, by necessity, step back and take a break. And then I gave myself the freedom, instead of like requesting an official leave of absence, I was able to give myself the freedom to go, let's look over here and see what's interesting and
Mhm.
explore what was happening over there. And I just followed my curiosity. And the more I did that, the more I realized that it enhanced my ability to practice law, because it gave me a larger frame of reference within which to relate to people. And my practice is business and real estate litigation, and that's always a breakdown and a crisis in a relationship. Always. A betrayal, some extreme kind of a rupture that happens.
Mhm.
And if I didn't have my own varied experience, I'd have a much harder time relating to my clients and understanding their scenarios. So it's been good, and I'm a big proponent of women, especially, having their own practices where they can give themselves the freedom to really have a life.
Yeah. I think that that is so powerful, and something that we forget too. Is that like it gives you a different vantage point too. It's
Yeah,
like you are a human being. You are not just an attorney. You
yeah.
are so much more than what your profession is. And we are complex individuals. And when you're able to lean into that, it does help you be a better advocate, because you not only are seeing a different perspective, but you also are creating a space where your client can open up because they know that they're being seen and heard, in a different way. That's not just like let's build your case up. It's like a human connection level where
Yeah.
you kind of feel more comfortable to be vulnerable, which helps your advocate for you in a more holistic way.
Wow. You really get it. You do. You really understand it. And the word that you used, the most important word to me in that sentence that you just said, was the word human. We're human beings. We are human. And that's one of the biggest things that I want people to keep in mind, is their humanity and being able to access their humanity, because that's ultimately how we're better at connecting with others. And that improves our persuasiveness, our power, how influential we are, the experience our clients have relating to us, and just our overall effectiveness, being able to always be in touch with that human side and to bring that into every communication.
Yes. And something that you said that I want to learn more about and lean more into too is you said that you spent a lot of time looking into influence and persuasion
Mm-hmm.
and power. Can you
Yeah.
expand on what that means?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I don't know how far back in time I to start this story, but let me
Wherever
just say
you
that
choose is right.
when I was a young lass, when I was a kid, I got into a lot of trouble through my storytelling. I don't know, I don't remember making things up per se. I don't think I was doing that necessarily, but I'm sure I embellished. I had a case of like, what is the sensational? I just had an instinct for getting people's attention through telling stories. And I got myself in a lot of trouble as a result. But my mother will tell you I was a natural born storyteller. And so, one of the things that I've always been really interested in is, well, what makes a compelling story? And I realized as I've studied that topic and gotten deeper and deeper into it, that it's not just the story and how you tell it, it's the storyteller and who you are as you're telling the story, like what you bring to the storytelling process. So, through my curiosity about storytelling, I also became interested in why and how stories are so effective. And so then I got into the neuroscience of that. And then I decided I wouldn't get just one certification from the Wharton School and that I would get three. And I did that in about 15 months. Yes.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I went to the Wharton School. I studied influence and persuasion and leadership. I studied leadership and executive presence, which included all these topics, and then the neuroscience of leadership and persuasion and influence. So
Wow.
I have three certifications that I'm super, super proud of. The best post grad education I've ever had. And it just emboldened me. Yes, I'm doing the right thing. Now I know even more about what to do and more excited to spread these ideas because they're teaching them in this cutting edge institution, right? But
Hmm.
so few people have this education, and lawyers certainly don't have this education. No, most lawyers.
Right. Right. No,
Yeah,
definitely, because I do think that like in law school, it's like, oh, it's how you tell the story. It's how you use the
yeah,
facts. But we're not
yeah,
really taught how to go deeper than that because there's so
right.
much more encompassed in telling a story.
Oh, yeah.
And I think like something for me just in my practice is I always want to know my why. I want to keep my why at the center of everything that I do because I think that keeps me here. That lets me know why it's so important for me to advocate and show up. And I think that that's so important for storytelling too, which you said of just like why and how. And those two
Hmm.
things, I mean, they're one word,
Yeah,
but it holds so much weight.
it really does. I want to know what your why is.
Oh my, I want to give a voice to people that don't feel like they have one. That's
Exactly.
my why. I just want
Beautiful.
to empower people to stand up for themselves and use their voice. That's like
Mm-hmm.
just always been so important to me from a very young age. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what I always remember is just like is helping people understand why they are worth fighting for.
I'm going to ask you a personal question. You don't have to
Yeah,
answer if you
go
don't
for
feel
it.
comfortable, but I'm really interested.
Yeah.
Is that because you felt voiceless yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I experienced a lot at a young age
Mm-hmm.
and didn't always feel like I was heard or respected.
Mm-hmm.
Just actually in the judicial process, because I was
Mm-hmm.
young and a child,
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of deemed as like not knowing enough. And so in those
Mm-hmm.
moments, I felt very just silenced. And I know how powerless that feels.
Well, I'm sorry you had that experience, but I think that that is a very human experience. And I think that's what leads a lot of us to want to become advocates or to want to advocate for social justice or want to speak out over whatever the issue is. So I'm not at all surprised, because when you and I connected on the phone before this interview, like, we connected and I felt like a real rapport and a similarity with you. And I have that experience too. I once I was studying acting for a while so that I could work on my presence when I was actually like speaking in front
Mhm.
of groups of people, not just in court. And so I remember once I had to introduce myself to a new class, and they said, "Why are you here? Why are you doing this?" And my answer was, "I have a deep wound around the need for self-expression and a compulsion to do it anyway." And everybody in the class just like applauded. They were like, "Me too." And I realized in that moment that we are not alone. A lot of people, a lot of people have that kind of fear. And we are the really brave ones, because look at how disciplined we had to be to go to law school, get this law degree, be in this incredible position of power and influence, whether we perceive it or are aware of it or not, and then be able to use it as a real force for good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not at all surprised to hear you say that. That's why I asked. I had this feeling. And I didn't ask you yesterday, but I thought if I get a chance to ask today, I'm going to ask.
Yeah,
So I
no,
did.
I appreciate that. And it's this like kismet feeling of you kind of just feel seen by somebody, even when you don't
Yeah.
have to say it, but you can feel it because
Yeah.
you show up vulnerably and honestly. And I think
Yeah.
that that's so important. And I think that's why I love having this podcast and just having this kind of visibility, because I think the power of not feeling alone is just so important.
Mm.
Because it's one thing for someone to be like, I can imagine what that feels like, but it's this
Yeah.
deeper level of just like, I intrinsically understand because I've been through something similar.
Right.
And I something that you had said when we spoke was just kind of the difficulty sometimes of leaning into and claiming your power. And that's something that I definitely think that I struggle with. And I think a lot of women may struggle with, just because maybe different perceptions or how we are kind of taught to be more palatable, or if we want to, you know, be respected, then we need to earn that respect instead of just kind of starting at the same level as male colleagues. So
Yeah.
is that something that you could kind of just touch on, of like how we can just lean into it and claim it more, and maybe what's preventing us from doing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay.
Thanks for asking that question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it there's so many ways that I can answer this question. So I'm just going to dive in, and I'm probably going to ramble, and feel free to edit me or cut me off because I have so much to say on this. But
Go
I
for it.
think that, okay, so you and I, we're similar, right? We have this wound around wanting to be heard and feeling like for whatever reason we were not heard, and then wanting
Mm-hmm.
to help others also be heard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have that in common. I think it's extremely common. I think a lot of people have that. I think that a lot of people don't realize that the fear of speaking up is inherently risky. It's inherently vulnerable. It's performance, which is incredibly vulnerable. We're not wired to just say whatever. Most of us, like, we are concerned about how we're going to be perceived if we say the wrong thing. We're neurologically wired to be concerned about that. And then many of us were raised in these environments where it was really risky for us to speak up and speak out. I know for me, I had situation in my family where when I was honest on a specific issue, I was punished. And that was extremely uh, damaging to my psyche. And so I think we get a lot of cultural messages about not being enough, or our fears around being too much and intimidating other people. And so part of my reason for wanting to teach people to be how they can be more powerful and influential is to normalize a lot of these psychological and neurological phenomenon that are happening inside of us while we're in the process of speaking. Like, nobody wants to stumble and fumble and forget what to say, or freeze, or say the wrong thing. It's humiliating. But if we can tap into that fear and do it anyway, there's huge
Mm-hmm.
power and huge opportunity and huge goodness on the other side of that, and it just makes us stronger. These are muscles that we have to exercise, and the only way to exercise them is to actually get in the arena and do it, play the game, risk
Mm-hmm.
it, Confront the fear of the failure. Confront the fear of the humiliation. Go for it.
I there was this post-it I used to have, and it was do it afraid, because sometimes just like the mental barrier is the hardest part to break through, because we can convince ourselves to not go into it and to protect and convince ourselves it's because we're protecting ourselves, you know. But gosh, there's so much growth that we can have if we just kind of push through that. And what if, like, if there are something that I have to ask myself is like, whose voice is that? When I am not feeling enough, or if I'm not feeling like I know enough, or maybe there's someone better for, and it's like, whose voice is that? Is that mine, or is that society's, or is that someone in my past? Like, whose voice is that? And it's like, I don't want to be another person that's not believing in myself, or not, you know, helping me realize my full potential. And so it's kind of just breaking through that and taking that next step of just doing it afraid, because afraid doesn't mean it's wrong.
Exactly. It's probably going to be much better than many other people and what they would do, because you're probably making the big faux pas of like over preparing, overly perfect, overly technical. I mean, so that relates to my big nose. But before I get into my big nose, which you haven't asked me about anyway.
No, I want
when
you
to. When you have those thoughts that go through your head, as I do, I have to silence them. I've basically learned to say to that thought, okay, sit down, you're not driving the bus. You know? And I like to connect to a bigger sense of purpose that I have. And it feels like a noble calling that's sort of pulling me forward. Even speaking to you today. Like I'm hoping that I can remember all the information and knowledge that I've crammed in my head. Like, I don't have enough RAM to share all the ideas at one time without looking at a note, right? I have to sometimes rely on my notes, but I'm like hoping that I don't blow it. Like, I'm dealing with this all the time. And I think if we care, if we're conscientious, if we want to have a good impact on the people we're speaking to, we're going to naturally be thinking these things. It's part of it. But the afraid part of us does not need to be the one that's driving the bus. It's like, okay, you sit down, shut up.
I love the visual of it too.
Just think about it. I'm driving the bus. I'm driving the bus.
I love that. Okay, tell me your big nose.
Okay. If you're a high achiever, I guarantee you, before you step into a courtroom, for example, or make a presentation, or jump on a call with a client or opposing counsel, or speak in a boardroom, this is what you're doing. That could be a mistake. They're common mistakes. You're over-explaining, you're overly analytical, you're overly technical, you're overly factual, and you're often overly prepared and not centered enough in your heart when you're speaking about what really matters and the human part of what it is you're trying to communicate. So those are what I call my big no's. And they're actually neuroscientific reasons and research and support for why this is a mistake. So yeah, these are my big no's, and I try to remember them all the time. They help keep me straight. They help me prepare my clients. They help me guide my clients on what to focus on what's really important, because sometimes people will come to me with, like, you know, a stack of paperwork, you know, thousands of pages, and details, and I'm like, okay, yes, details matter, but too many details and your decision maker is going to go into paralysis, and you're gonna overdo it, and that's a big no. That's a big no. So we have to, like, really focus and distill down what matters, what is the big point, and let some of that detail go. It's scary, I know. I love the details. I cling to them. I want to grasp onto them, right? I need to know them. I'm definitely compulsive when I'm working up a case. But when it comes down to presenting it and you're actually in that courtroom or you're having that negotiation, think about it. What does it come down to? It isn't that. There's no way you can convey like years of details and thousands of pages, distill thousands of pages of correspondence. You have to distill them. You can't just rely on them. You can't repeat them, is what I'm saying. You have to learn how to focus.
Okay. I was gonna say, what's the alternative, and how do you know when to stop? Because I'm like,
Yeah, I
I
know.
think for me, like, I am a quintessential overthinker, over preparer. I go to like the nth degree because
Yeah.
I feel like that's my level of preparedness. That is
Yeah.
how I am preparing. But how do you know kind of when to recognize it's happening and also kind of take that step back to know where to kind of synthesize?
Well, for me,
Mm-hmm.
I can always recognize it's happening when I feel completely overwhelmed. When I feel completely overwhelmed and I'm disconnected from my emotions. When I'm looking at the material and I'm seeing like numbers and statistics and data and I'm disconnected or disconnecting from the emotional content of
Mm-hmm.
the material. I always bring myself to focus on the dynamics between the parties and the emotional content of the case. I mean, we're talking to lawyers mostly on your podcast. This can apply in all business situations, but I'll just confine my answers right now
Yeah.
to the context of a legal practice and a litigation practice, although it also applies in negotiations too. The emotional piece of it. Well, let me just give you a little neuroscientific
Yeah, I'd
lesson.
love it.
Okay, so there are neural networks that run throughout the brain. They're not just in the right side of the brain. That's an old way of thinking about it. But the research and the science has confirmed that the networks run throughout our brains. And the neural networks for emotions are overriding the more linear, old school left brain thinking, slower, methodical reasoning, overly data oriented, overly technical parts of the brain. The emotions override them in the decision making function process. And this has been documented through functional MRI and EEG. So to ignore the emotions is to not really be doing the best job that you can do, to be quite honest, to get down to it. The
Mm-hmm.
best job that you can do is when you're really focused on the emotions and tapped into the emotions yourself as you're sharing the data, the logic, and telling the story.
Wow. How validating. Because I feel like so often we are told to take the emotion out of it, think logically, do, and it's like, but it's so much more complex than that.
You're
Wow.
so 100% right. Yeah, validating. You're 100%
Wow.
right. Isn't it confirming? This is
Yes.
why I'm so passionate about this because, I mean, you and I are peas in a pod, so we sort of see things very similarly. We've had similar experiences and we're
Mhm.
very emotionally empathic. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just share another idea.
Yeah.
When they teach, well, when we look at leaders, like leaders of Fortune 500 companies, political leaders, most of them, I realize it's
Hmm.
April 8th, 2026, but most leaders um, are very empathic and they know how to communicate that in a way that resonates with a large group of people, right? The
Mhm.
majority of people, technically, like in a
Right.
democracy. I didn't think I was going to talk about this today, so pardon me for
No, you're
rambling,
good.
but I'm
No,
just
I
going to
love
get to the
this so
point.
much.
Okay,
No,
good.
go for it.
The most important quality that most of these leaders have is empathy. There's several. There's like five big ones. Let me see if I can rattle them off. And
Okay.
there's the ability to self-regulate your own emotions, not be reactive. Do you think someone could learn from that? Maybe so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, we can
Hmm.
all learn from that because I love to react when I'm angry. I love to give like an unfiltered, angry response, but it's what we would call inappropriate and unprofessional, right? We would lose decorum if we were doing that in a courtroom. We would
Mhm.
undermine our credibility. People wouldn't take us seriously. And they would think, how can you lead when you can barely control yourself? Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm just saying self regulation is really important. But more than that is empathy, the ability to empathize. And that requires that, well, basically what we're doing when we're empathizing is we are feeling intensely the feelings of the people that we're communicating with, what their emotional needs, fears, wants, desires are, right? And we're
Mhm.
able to speak into that and speak in a way that resonates with them on those issues. Empathy is, like I was saying, it's the ability to really feel and resonate with and tap into the emotions of others. And this is a really important ingredient around how we are able to influence, because people will follow you if you are emotionally resonating with them, and if you can get them to feel that they are seen and heard and understood, or that you identify with them and their position. So I don't know if I answered that question. I think I might be rambling. Are we
No,
good?
I love this. I literally am like, oh, I wish I could take notes. And I was like, oh wait, I get to listen to this. I love just like understanding the why. Like I think that
Yeah.
it's so important, and I think that it just provides so much more context, and also just like
Yeah.
feels validating, because sometimes I think that you like these make sense when you're saying them to me, but I've never heard them put this way.
Mm-hmm.
Or taking that time to just be like, yeah, that is how that kind of works, because it plays out that way. But when you can actually intentionally try and curate it or lean into it or recognize it, I think that just kind of brings you up that next level.
I think it does 1000%. I mean, since I started studying these ideas, my confidence has
Mm.
gone up so much more. My effectiveness as a result has gone up so much more. I'm able to establish immediate rapport with my opponents, my adversaries, with other witnesses. I mean, I was always good at it, and I'm sure you are too. I'm sure you are too, because you're highly empathic, right? Even if it's an adversary or an opponent.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a gift, Michaela. That is such a gift. I mean, I've had cases even as a very young lawyer where I would be examining a witness on a witness stand, and because I was able to connect with them while I was speaking to them, I got them to make these incredible admissions, and it would help my client.
Yeah.
But it was like their guard came down, they were more relaxed, and I got exactly what it was I needed without having to force it out of them. But
No.
that's exactly, not that we can force anything out of anybody, but without being angry and without being belligerent, right?
Yes.
Like there's that old phrase, you catch more bees with honey than
Yes.
with, what is it, the alternative? I don't even know. You catch
I
bees
don't
with
even
honey.
know,
That's
but
all I know.
I'm, yeah. Yeah. No, it's so interesting because I think everyone kind of has their style, right? And I think you do yourself a disservice if you just try and emulate someone else's. I think it's important to really understand what feels authentic to you. And that can
Yes.
mean so many different things. But that was always more my style in depositions and in getting testimony, was just connecting on a human level. Because when you feel like you're just having a conversation with someone, you do let your walls down. And that's so much different than if you feel like someone is coming at you and making you feel like you need to defend yourself. And those
Right.
walls go up and you just it's different environments. And so I think
Yes.
I've definitely seen many different styles, but mine has always been to just like talk like human beings. I obviously have an agenda of things that I
Right.
want to get, but I think that there are lots of different ways you can do that. And I always want to just be me at the end of it. Like I am my longest commitment. I want to always operate in a way that I feel like is respectful and true to me, regardless if it's in my job or my relationships or whatever. I like that consistency. And so I want that to kind of show up in my advocacy too.
Well, you're extraordinary for even thinking about these things and for being so intentional about them, really seriously. Kudos to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I can tell you that having spent some time in this really fine Ivy League institution, learning from the best of their professors, who, by the way, are consulting with, governmental agencies and other governments and Fortune 500 and 1,000 companies, the leadership teams and the C-suite, and they're just like they're teaching these ideas there to the leaders of our society. And I can tell you that empathy. They've studied leaders, and the most effective, popular, beloved leaders with the most effective and successful organizations and teams rate higher in empathy and EQ than they do in IQ. Isn't that
No way.
interesting? Way,
That's amazing.
way.
Wow.
And so for me, being, going into the practice of law with all this baggage from that senior partner who said, you're not a legal genius, and then I was winning my cases, and I look back over the last 30 plus years, and I realize, oh, I guess I knew something he didn't know, and I guess that explains it. I guess that explains it, because I thought, it's a fluke. No, it's not a fluke. And so that's the point, is that I want more people to realize these qualities are an asset. They're the ultimate asset and not a liability. Be emotional, feel it, because all humans have them. And that's the keys to the kingdom, as far as I'm concerned. Be able to emotionally resonate. Why do you think when we see a really great movie, we all cry in certain parts, or most of us cry, and like, oh my God, I couldn't stop crying? And you hear that, like many people will share the same experience. Or you watch a politically moving speech by an inspiring candidate or political leader, and you're like, oh my God, and they sort of take your breath away. Or you cry when they say the Pledge of Allegiance at a football game, or they sing the national anthem at a baseball game. Why do we feel that emotion? It's collective. It's collective. And also, everybody else in that stadium is feeling the same thing. And there's a phenomenon that involves when remember I was saying a few minutes ago how when you're feeling emotion, the neural circuitry is firing in your brain that where the emotions are firing, right? I don't know how to say it any more clearly
Makes
than
sense to
that.
me. Yeah,
Okay, but you get my idea, right?
for sure.
So then what's happening is mirror neurons are firing, and others are feeling them. So when we have a certain emotion and we're telling a story and we're feeling that emotion, or we're conveying that emotion as we're telling the story, the audience is feeling the same thing because of the firing of the mirror neurons. They're feeling it mentally without it being like some like the pen is flying through the air, or that specific
Yeah.
word. It's like you are speaking it and you are transmitting it, and humans are receptors. So there's
Wow.
this huge, yes, scientifically documented. Yeah.
That's
Cutting edge
so
stuff,
fascinating.
isn't it?
Yes, I love talking to you. I love your brain. I think it's just like
Oh,
incredible. And I think something that's like I admire a lot about you is that you have done all of this work, and also you want to make people around you better. Like you
yeah.
take the time to teach. You know, like I think there's so much just like power in knowledge, and it's not something that you are implementing just for yourself, but you also want to empower those around you to have that knowledge and better themselves too. And I think that that is an extra step that not a lot of people take, because there's a lot of intentionality and there's a lot of time and effort and energy that goes into that on top of everything that you already have in your life. And I admire that so much, and thank you for the work that you are doing, and want you to maybe touch a little bit upon like your frameworks and what you're doing and how people can get further education from you and the work that you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much for that reflection. I really appreciate it. And I'm here to level the playing field. I'm here to share this knowledge because it's so empowering, and it shouldn't be available only to a privileged few. Further, I think that there are leaders in our profession who know this, but they don't want us to know this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There's not a lot of transparency, and these ideas are extremely powerful and empowering. And that's why I want to spread them. I mean, what I know, it's like it's an open book as much as I can share. I mean, it was my curiosity and my difficult circumstances that led me to want to know this information, and now that I have it, I feel like it's in my obligation to share it. So it's my pleasure to share it. So let me just say that I have created a method. It's called the Influence Amplifier Method, and basically it's my checklist. I have a few different ones, but this is a primary one. But it's my checklist for keeping in mind all the key ideas, the key concepts that I need to always be mindful of whenever I go into any communication. And I found that the more that I work with these ideas, study these ideas, practice, implement these ideas, because that's a huge part, right? Like my law practice really is a practice. It really is a laboratory for me. And the more I do that, the more second nature it becomes. And the work that I do with either one-on-one in private consultation or in groups, which I call the Power Lab sessions, is
Ooh.
where yeah. We are working with these concepts and practicing these ideas because so that we become fluent with them. We want to achieve fluency with these ideas, so it's second nature. But I'll just run through what they are.
Yes, please.
Real quick. So the first one is, I like to say, and this is very meta, but when you're telling a story, a very effective way of telling that story, for example, advertisers do this all the time, right? To get us to buy things, is to come up with a tweet or a microscript. So I like to say, to remind myself, is that if you are the tool, trust is the fuel. That's a little microscript that I created to kind of encapsulate this idea of trust being so important. It's like, welcome to the world of cynics and skeptics. We are in a huge credibility crisis right now, right? Nobody trusts anybody. And it's never been as bad as I can ever recall in my lifetime, right? And I've lived a while. So trust is really super important. And then there are things that we can do to counter it. We may have to have like 2 more podcast sessions for me to cover. I'm just going to hit the highlights. So trust. That's number 1. Number 2, we talk about preparing our case, but we don't talk about preparing ourselves. Right? Think about it. And when you know about the power of mirror neurons, it becomes even more important that we work on ourselves and prepare ourselves to present as much as we work up our case and our witnesses and our clients and our documents, our evidence, right? So it's prepare yourself, and that relates, the little subcategory under that is what I call the importance of presence. Who you are when you're speaking, how you're showing up when you're speaking, right? For the scientific reasons that I explained. And then there's more, but we don't have time. Okay, so the next one, you got to go beyond bada bing, bada boom, and you've got to really build rapport on an authentic, genuine, human, heart-centered, embodied, aligned level with what you're talking about. Okay? And there's all different ways that we can do this. And of course, I go deeper with my clients and in the Power Lab sessions about why it's so important. But rapport, being likable. I'm sorry, but it is kind of a popularity contest out there in the world. It's also scientifically documented. If they don't like you, you're out of here. Seriously. And we have some other like recent examples of women who've taken hits for being incredibly unlikable. Okay. Right? Okay. So there's that. And that's where your emotional intelligence is your best friend. It's your best friend. Empathy, that part of emotional intelligence, hugely important. Okay. Oh my God, I have so much I can say on that topic. I mean, it's just, we can't cover it all in an hour.
Oh yeah,
all
no,
right.
I already know I want you back so that we can just do like part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Sure, no problem. My pleasure. Okay, here's another one. Watch your language. Psycholinguistics are really important. You want to speak in the language of your audience or the people that you're trying to persuade. There are ways to do that. Okay, we'll just say there are ways to do that. But you want to talk in their language. Like, you don't want to walk into a courtroom and sound like you're like this hyper-technical person, and you have jurors who maybe don't have higher education, haven't had the opportunities that you've had, aren't as privileged when it comes to what they know. I don't think they're going to like you if you're talking like up here, down to them.
Yeah.
No. You have to be able to speak to them in a language that resonates with them, that they understand. So that's watch your language. And then, of course, like 10 pages about watching your language and how to do that. Here's my favorite one, is trigger emotion. You got to trigger emotion, intentionally, strategically trigger emotion. That means being self-regulated and unemotional when the moment calls for it, right? But we want to be mindful of the fact that emotions are a very powerful tool, and we want to use them intentionally and strategically, okay? Okay, 10 more pages on that. And then bring the drama. You want to bring the drama through stories, okay? And then I can spend, like, I have MCLE courses on how to tell a good story and how to be a good storyteller, more importantly. The importance of being a really good storyteller. what I learned from the crisis communication reputation management people out there.
Yeah.
And it relates directly to what makes great leadership. And I have a crisis communications approach whenever I have like a bad fact in my case. And let's face it, all of our cases, there is no perfect case. There is no 100% winnable case. It doesn't exist because we're all freaking humans, right? And so are our clients. So there is no perfection. So this circles back to the topic of trust, and it relates directly to the issue of accountability. Taking radical accountability for what goes wrong, even if you're the plaintiff. And remember that when you go to court as a plaintiff and you're pointing the finger and you're blaming, there's still 3 fingers pointing back at you. So we want to be able to give context and explanation and contrition to our role in whatever went wrong. And that, I think, is that's extreme accountability, and it's lacking in our culture, our society, our politics right now, sadly. And
Absolutely.
As lawyers, we walk into courtrooms and we are on the front lines. We really are at a micro level, but that doesn't minimize the importance. And I think we all need to make or create or set an example of what being great leaders means, what it looks like, what it is. We don't get any training in that. So I'm here to change that.
Yeah. And you're doing incredible work. And I want to go into each one of those and learn so much more and pick your brain. And so I'm already my wheels are turning on future episodes and how we can talk about those, because I want you to be able to go into that depth. And I also want people to learn these things and implement these things, because I think there's a better world that could be created by more people embodying the way that you show up in the world. And I just thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and for the work that you are doing in making this profession better, but also the world better. We are a small microcosm, but that can grow and build, and you're doing work to try and facilitate that. And I'm just honored that you are on this podcast and that you are sharing your knowledge. And okay. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I have one more question I want to ask you, and then I want you to tell us where people can find you and reach out to you and sign up for these one-on-ones in your groups, and then also where you have your MCLEs on all of these amazing topics. So, okay, my last question. Something I'm asking all of my guests this season is, if you could give younger you one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Oh my God, I would write a book and hand it to her, but let me see if I can think of
I resonate with that so much.
That's me over preparing, by the way. I won't do that. I'm breaking my rules. Okay, so I would tell her that she's smarter than she thinks, and she's more right on than she thinks. Trust her intuition. Go with her gut. Her gut is not wrong. She's completely right.
That's amazing. Because look where it's gotten you. Look where you are today. That's really beautiful.
Where am I today?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michaela. Thanks for these beautiful reflections. You're great for my ego. I will call you before I go on any podcast or any stage or any courtroom in order to have you pump me up, right? Because
Gladly.
I really thank you for seeing me and for appreciating this work and these ideas that I'm sharing.
Of course, you deserve it. And where can people find you?
Oh, okay. It's really easy. Jennifer B. Gardner is my name. B as in boy in the middle. I'm on Instagram at Jennifer B. Gardner. I'm on it way too often, way too much, so you can always find me there. LinkedIn, Jennifer B. Gardner. JenniferBGardner.com to contact me. You can email me at hello@JenniferBGardner.com. I'm everywhere. I'm easy to find. It's easy to track me down. You can message me on LinkedIn. You can message me on Instagram. I try to stay away from Facebook, but I do have a presence there, and I think those are the coordinates. Those
Oh
are the
my gosh,
coordinates.
amazing.
Yeah.
And your education material and MCLE, is that, where
Oh,
can you
yeah.
find that?
I have two courses that I'm currently offering right now. One has been approved by California for MCLE credit, and it's
Awesome.
called, I think it's Whoever Tells the Best Story Wins. How you can have bad facts, bad law, and still win your case. I'm pretty sure that's the version of it that's up there that can be purchased online. And then I have another one on the power of professional identity that was approved in Colorado that I'm sure will be approved in California. We just have to submit the paperwork. We haven't gotten around to that yet. I also have information on the art of influence and the Power Lab sessions. And I will send you, if I haven't already, the link for people if they want to get on the wait list for Power Lab sessions. I
Yeah.
will send that link to you because when my trial schedule calms down a little bit, I'm going to be launching that again. I keep trying to, but I have limited bandwidth and, I
Yeah.
have to focus on my clients' cases first. And then I can launch another Power Lab. But you're definitely on the list for the next one. And
Yay.
basically, what we do is we just work through, we get more familiar with these ideas that I'm sharing with you, but I'm facilitating the growth that's necessary to be able to use these ideas effectively, right? Giving people a place to practice. And you can work on a case, you can work on a personal issue, you can work on yourself. I mean, we do all kinds of really neat things in there. And we network because networks are a way of growing your power.
Mm.
So we do that in the Power Lab sessions. Yeah. So, oh, and I do have that guide for your audience. Let's not
Yes.
forget. Let's not
No,
forget.
we definitely cannot
Okay.
forget, because
Yeah.
this is like the most incredible treat. So, can you tell us a little bit about what guide you are gifting our listeners with?
Yes, it is called the Empathic Power Players Strategic Communications Guide. How you can have high impact in high stakes situations. It literally is about the somatics and the psychology behind our fear around public speaking and advocating and how to manage that, how to deal with that. And I sent you a link so you got your free copy. Yeah, I'm
Oh
giving it
my
away.
gosh.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. What an
you're
incredible
welcome.
gift. And I appreciate you. And I am so
Oh,
happy to know you, and that everyone's hear a little bit about who you are and how you show up in the world. And I can't wait to have more episodes with you, because I just want to talk to you all the time.
yeah. Well, we'll just do it. We'll just like have a conversation and we'll just hit record.
Agreed, truly. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I really, really appreciate you for being here today.
Michaela, thank you for so generously sharing your platform and your audience and giving me a chance to share these ideas. I appreciate you. I see you. You're amazing. Keep going. I'm going to pass the torch to you. You're it, like it or not. And yeah, you have big shoulders. You're going to need them.
Thank
Yes.
you. I just adore you. Thank you for everything. And
You're
thank
sure
you,
welcome.
everyone, for listening. Until next time. Oh, that was so good. I don't know. I want to hug you.
I know. I want to hug you too. I'm so glad we met.